Over the last few weeks and months, several people have reached out to me asking for some insight into how I decide which books to send in to CGC. So I decided to record a video to provide you with a little bit of insight into my methodology. Now, what's important about the things that I'm going to say and show in this video is that this is my approach. This is one approach that I take. But more important than that is that this is how I choose to do it. I'm not necessarily saying that this is what you should do, nor am I saying that this is the only approach. In fact, I have a feeling that when this video goes live, people will have lots of things to say about this methodology or that methodology or this approach and that approach. But that's exactly why I'm recording this video. I'm recording it to say, here is a method. If there are better methods, if there are tweaks to this method, offer them up. Let's have a dialogue. Let's have a discussion. That's what this channel is all about. If you want to know the details, stay tuned to this video. Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we are going to look at my methodology for deciding which books to send in to CGC for grading. My methodology is a mixture of mathematical equations that you can do on the back of a piece of paper, referencing a few websites, and it also includes physical examination of the comic book. We are first going to look at the physical examination, and then we will tackle the math in the second part of this video. When it comes to the physical exam of the book, there are a couple of things that I've learned, some lessons that I've learned the hard way. Yes, you want to take a look at the cover of the book. You want to look at the spine of the book to take notice of any ticks that may exist. You want to look at the individual corners, all four corners of the book, to see if there's any rips, any tears, any dog ears, any folds, any bends, anything that might show up as a defect. But you cannot stop just at the front cover. You have to take the book out of the plastic and look at the back cover, and you want to look for any transfers of color. You want to look for any smears. You want to look for any roughness, because sometimes a book may be slid across a table or something like that, and it may have some color breaking scratches on the backside, especially if the book has a black cover. You also want to look for any yellowing of a white cover, for example. And I've gotten dinged a couple of times for that one, where it's a white cover that has some yellowing. And I don't know if it's a transfer from something else or what, but that white cover isn't quite as white as it should be. So you want to take it out of the plastic. You want to look at the front. You want to look at the back. You want to look at the edges of the book. You also want to take some time to flip through the book. If you're sending in a modern book, more than likely all the pages are there. But if it's an older book, you want to make sure that the pages are there. And you can even look at a digital version of the book to ensure that the page count is all the same, right? And is correct and complete. If it is a modern book, one thing that you want to look for are some folds in some of the paper. I've actually seen this with some of the Amazing Spider-Man 800, for example. When the paper, I guess, was still wet or whatever, it would crinkle up just a little bit and almost be doubled over, which to me shows up as a defect. I don't know how CGC would grade it, but if I were to see that in a book and I had multiple copies, I wouldn't send the book that had the doubled over piece of paper. My point is, you want to spend some time looking at the book, examining the book, looking for any type of defects, and then you'll be able to decide, do I send this book or do I not? If I have multiple copies, I may not send the book that has a minor defect, especially if I have one that looks a whole lot better. But you could also say that if the book has a minor defect, you at least want to be aware of it before you decide to send the book in. The last thing you want is to not look at the book as carefully as you should or could, to have the book then come back and be at a lower grade, and as you're looking at it wondering why did they lower the grade, you notice something that you probably should have caught if you had just taken it out of the plastic. And again, I am sharing this because I have learned this from experience. I have made this mistake where I would look at it and be like, how did they do that? And then I look on the back side and then there's a fingerprint or a dog ear or something like that. So you definitely want to take the book out. You want to get up close and personal with the book, and you want to make sure that you are aware of every nook and cranny and every defect that that book may have. There are plenty of other YouTubers that also have some wonderful videos on this same topic. So I would encourage you to continue exposing yourself to that material so that you can be as prepared as you possibly can be for your submission to CGC. So one of the things that I like to do is to compare multiple copies of a book versus its peers. So for example, I have 3 copies of Thanos number 14. So what I'll do is I'll actually stack the 3 copies on top of one another. I'll spread them apart, and then I'll basically look at the top corner and the bottom corner. And as I'm going through and looking for defects, what I'll do is I'll reshuffle the books, putting to the bottom of the stack the book with the most defects, putting to the top of the stack the book that is the most perfect out of the stack. Once I examine this edge, I'll shift to this corner, these corners, and start to look at them, and again kind of shift based upon what I'm seeing. And as I do that, what I may end up doing just from the front cover is eliminating 1 book, keeping 2, taking these 2 out of the plastic, and then looking at the back side of the book, essentially doing the same thing. I have a total right now of these Thanos books, number 14, 6 copies. These 3 are the most perfect out of all 6. These 3 will be going into CGC, and the other 3 will remain in their raw format. It's important to remember that not every book that you have in your collection should be a book that would be sent off to CGC. So in the example that I just cited with Thanos number 14, 3 of those books are still in the raw format and will remain that way. They're probably not going to go to CGC for several different reasons, right? Because they have defects, and when you start to look at the defects and the grade that may come back, it may not warrant getting those books grade, unlike the other 3 that are near perfect and should come back as 9.8s. Now I want to shift gears and I want to talk a little bit about the analysis that I do. Regardless of the grading service that you use, there are some costs involved. There's costs involved for the acquisition of the book. There's costs involved for the grading of the book. And so it's important that you truly understand what those costs are. For example, the price of the book, cost of grading, cost of pressing, and shipping fees to and from the grading company are some of the costs and fees that must be considered. The price of the book is straightforward. The estimated cost of grading and pressing can be captured on the CGC submission portal. The shipping costs are also fairly simple and shouldn't really affect your analysis in any meaningful way, even if you're off. Now, with that said, you will need to guesstimate the grade that will be awarded to the book, and an overestimation of the book's condition could adversely affect your analysis. For this reason, I tend to grade my books pretty conservatively because this is the worst case scenario. From here, the math is pretty straightforward. You take the price of the book plus grading plus pressing and shipping, then subtract the value of the graded book. After doing the math, you will either have a positive or negative number, and these numbers will either be large or small, but you'll be in a better position to determine if the book should be submitted or not. Okay, let's apply this methodology to 3 examples. For these examples, I'll be using the most recent full month sales data from Go Collect to determine the value. If there were no sales in the most recent full month, I went back 1 additional full month. We should also assume that all the books in these examples will be 9.8s because that's essentially what I'm going to be screening for. Our 3 examples will be Thanos 13, 14, and 15. These are all books that I'm planning to send to CGC. So when we look at Thanos 13, there were a total of 47 sales in the month of July, and the fair market value for 9.8 was $203. The prices for Thanos 13 range from a low of $182.50 to a high of $235. That gives us an average price of $203. When we look at the cost for grading and acquisition, grading will cost $18 plus $8 for a quick press, $5 estimated shipping, and the acquisition of the book was $3.99. That's cover price. And that gives us a total cost of $34.99. And if you subtract that from the fair market value of $203, you are left with a net of $168.01. So when we look at Thanos number 14, it's a slightly different story here. There were a total of 16 sales in the month of June. There were no sales when I pulled this data for the month of July. And in the month of June, a 9.8 fair market value was $79. The range of prices in June was a low of $68 and a high of $130, with an average price of $79 even. When we look at the cost of grading, quick press, shipping, and also acquisition of the book at $3.99, that gives us a total of $34.99. And when you subtract that from the FMV, that leaves you with a net of $44.01, a very different picture than Thanos 13. When we look at Thanos 15, there were a total of 42 sales in the month of July. The fair market value at a 9.8 was $107. The range of prices for the month of July was $86 low to a high of $130, giving us an average price of $107. When we look at the cost of grading, quick press, shipping, and the acquisition of the book also at $3.99, that also gives us a total cost of $34.99. Subtracted from the FMV of 107, that gives us a net total of $72.01. So using the same mathematical equation, we applied it to three different books, Thanos 13, 14, and 15. All of the numbers come out to be positive, thankfully, but they are at a very different range, right? You have a high of $168.01 and a low of $44.01. And so the question that you have to ask yourself is, yes, these numbers are all positive, but is it worth it to send it in? In my mind, I think that it is worth it. I am a huge fan of Thanos, as many of you know. And so for me, these are definitely some books that I plan to send in. I should also mention that I have multiple copies of each one that are still raw, that will remain in that format and will not be submitted. But the higher grade books that I have at 9.8s will absolutely be sent in and pre-screened at a 9.8. So there you have it. One of the methods that I employ to decide which books to send in to CGC. Now you might watch this video and you might be saying to yourself, does it always have to be about money? Absolutely not. The first video that I actually recorded about this topic didn't really have much to do with money at all. It dealt with the other reasons why you might want to encapsulate a book. Protection, preservation, and because you just want to do it, right? This is an additional video that I've created to layer on to some things that I've talked about before, because some people wanted to know about the dollars and cents. And I said this at the beginning, I'll say it now, that this is one method. This is one way that you can actually decide what books you want to send in to CGC. It's not always about the money. It's certainly not the only methodology or the only rationale for deciding which books to send in to get graded. I hope that you enjoyed this content. Certainly, if you have any additional tips or thoughts around anything that I've shared in this video, I encourage you to leave it in the comment section, or you can reach out to me directly. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. Take care.